I got that animal ambition. I got that animal ambition. I got that.
What's up, y'all? Smoak here. What's good? In this video, I'm gonna be watching 12 misconceptions about WCW probably believe about WhatCulture wrestling. Now, I didn't grow up watching WCW, not at the time, because they went defunct by 2001. At that time, I was about 4 years old. I'm aware of the past WCW stars like Sting, Sid Vicious, Diamond Dallas Page, of course, infamous NWO, etc. But they didn't know that even through Peacock / the WWE Network did I ever watch a WCW programming. I will go back and watch pay-per-view from ECW, because their matches were the truth, man. On God, I ain't gonna hold you. They were pretty tight. But for WCW, I was never let me go back and watch a pay-per-view, see what's good. That never came to my mind. A WCW Nitro, none of that. It's just a bunch of hearsay that I be hearing about for WCW. As a matter of fact, the only pay-per-view I watched was Bash of the Beach 2000. That was because the infamous Jeff Jarrett just laying down for that Hulk Hogan could take the pin, and which pissed him off, and then Vince Russo came out and just shoot on Hulk Hogan and all this other stuff here, but I mean, even at that time too, it wasn't good. That eventually led to his downfall, which was bought out by Vince McMahon. Let's dive into the video and see what I can be educated on by WhatCulture Wrestling.
So I loved WCW. I was a WWF kid, but there was just a few years where you had to flip back and forth with the television channel controller thingamajig because you wanted to know what was going to happen on both. It's very stressful and fun. And sure, yes.
He got and that's what I heard too. But Eric Bischoff on a podcast recently, if you can WWE and WCW on that period, each side will have 4 million views, but that doesn't mean 8 million people in total watching wrestling. Right? Even that statement doesn't make sense. 8 million people, bro, is really hot on wrestling. Nah, it was just people constantly going back and forth, right, with the on the network to see what's happening here and what's happening there, etc. Freaking this is 1997, 1998, 1999, etc. Freaking and I don't know, because I'm a 90s baby. I was born in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, and freaking I don't know if there was DVR. I don't think DVR was around that point, but I don't know how Betamax works. Was it Betamax, whatever? I think that's what it's called it. I know it records stuff like shows, whatever. I don't know how it works exactly. I don't know. It could have been if the same function as a DVR. Cause me personally, bro, if I can, right, with the DV, how the DVR is set up today, freaking, I would have recorded one side and just watched both shows on my free time. Freaking, for example, Raw, watch it Monday, and then probably the following Tuesday I'll go watch Nitro, because there was no wrestling show, at least mainstream. I was on Tuesday, so might as well, right?
Year 2000 could be some of the worst television you ever see in your life.
Stop.
Fun. And sure, yes, the year 2000 could be some of the worst television you ever see in your life, but
yeah.
Actually it's so bad it becomes good again. And given that WCW died over 2 decades ago, if you can believe it, there are a lot of misconceptions. Hello, I am Simon Miller.
All right.
We're gonna talk about
he's an unbiased dude, so
figure out what's true and what's a pile of crap. Number 12, early WCW was the home of real wrestling. So this is nonsense, and it happens anytime any kind of modern wrestling does goofy wrestling, which is for life, where people go, oh my gosh, back in the day, wrestling companies never used to do this. Yes, they did. You can go back all the way to the 70s, and you will watch something that is essentially a carnival. Sports entertainment has always been a thing. It was just Vince.
For what I heard too, the pro wrestling, they came from the carnival, right? So, which makes sense considering the referees, or at least back then they did, they would talk to you in carny, right? So, at first when I heard that from a referee in the podcast, I said really, but then knowing now that's where it stemmed from.
McMahon coined it, and you can even go all the way back to 1988 when Ted Turner essentially said, oh, I'm going to take this NWA thingamajig and turn it into WCW, even though a lot of what they did do was still National Wrestling Alliance. And absolutely you get stuff like the Cheatown Rumble when Ric Flair and Steamboat were doing their thing. But around the same time, at least a couple years later, you get Oz. Kevin Nash walking out like he was a Wizard of Oz character. And even before then, essentially around the time the Nature Boy and Steamboat were doing their thing, you get the Ding Dongs. There you go. That's the Ding Dongs. You think that is serious wrestling? You can kiss my butt. It was just totally wild because you'd also then get Sting and Terry Funk doing stuff. So in many ways, watching the WWF was a less nuts experience because you knew that a lot of that stuff was going to be silly. Whereas WCW, you kind of sat there going, listen, anybody can come down the aisle next. I have no idea. So let's stop pretending that one day all of a sudden wrestling became totally nonsensical. It's always been nonsensical. And if we're honest, that's why it's so damn good. Number 11, the Cruiserweight division died with Oklahoma. I mean, it certainly did take a hit, because yes, here is Oklahoma, which was Ed Ferrara doing a terrible Jim Ross impression, which was genuinely offensive. And you can see by this image, no, he was not a Cruiserweight, and yet for some reason he still won the Cruiserweight Championship, and then he feuded with Medusa. Now listen, this isn't on Medusa's feet. It wasn't her fault, but all of this was absolutely terrible.
Vince Russo, bro, why would you do that? You have these talented freaking guys in the Cruiserweight division, and you're gonna shit on them by having your boy Ed Ferrara freaking being named Oklahoma, freaking mocking you know who, and then freaking who's a bit overweight, and freaking to win the title and then face a woman. Did Medusa win? Either way, it's silly and ridiculous, bro. What the heck? Why did he thought I was cool? I don't understand. This guy thinking freaking Vince, it makes no sense. Because what I heard from Eric Bischoff in his 83 Weeks podcast is that Eric, for the most part, if not every time, Vince Russo, he's he writes angle, not stories. Even being the lead booker, he still wrote angles. Like the next week, like what's happening the week after, or the week after. It's like, I don't know, right? That's what Eric Bischoff said. He's like sitting right there, right? And you know that's freaking, and hearing Jim Cornette like constant frustration on Vince Russo. I mean, it's not a vital point. It's ridiculous, and this is freaking example 1 million. Why? There's no point of doing that, bro.
And of course, it came from the mind of Ed and Vince Russo. They were writing the show. Of course they were. It did not kill the championship though, because after that there was still a bunch of amazing names that stood up to ensure we did do better by this championship. You had Elix Skipper, you had Shane Helms, you had Chavo Guerrero, and a bunch more who realized, oh my gosh, this whole cruiserweight idea is one of the reasons WCW did become so popular. So even though numbers are going in the wrong direction, let's do what we can. It's also what Eric Bischoff hung his hat on in many ways. When he did finally take over WCW, he looked at the American wrestling landscape scene and was like, well, maybe we can go down to Mexico and over to Japan and show these audiences there is more than one style. And genuinely, for a few years, it was absolutely brilliant. That cruiserweight title meant something. And even in March
WWE did that same thing. Now they brought back the they had a cruiserweight division, right, which were primarily on SmackDown back in the day, and not that long ago, really, like back in 2004, 2005, and the wrestler was pretty good, but I mean that was it, cause it was like at least probably like 6 cruiserweights, right, and it was good for what it was. WWE brought it back to cruiserweight division years later with 205 Live, right? And they used to put on Raw, and I wasn't watching like that. So, but I believe they had it on Raw for an hour, where it was just like the cruiserweight, right? Before they had their own show called 205 Live, and it was like in the middle of Raw. I don't know if it was in the second hour, probably. But I mean, yeah. But something like that, you don't want to drag on storyline in the cruiserweight. You want 2 cruiserweights to go at. Maybe you want 4 cruiserweights to go at it, right? Like back-to-back matches. First match, bam. Second match, bam. You got an interview segment there, then boom, and then you move on to whatever you got planned for the rest of the show. That's how it should have been done when they brought back the cruiserweight division, as opposed to just like do all this stuff for an hour and then eventually move it to its own show, which eventually died. I think they replaced it with something else. I think they replaced it with NXT Level Up before they got folded, because I think Evolve is eventually going to take its place, because it's currently on Tubi. in America at least. But yeah, I mean, you could do stuff with the cruiserweight division. Like if they could have brought it back and just do like how I said it, there shouldn't be no issue, bro. Honestly, you guys could showcase in this skill. Like you had like Tozawa, for example. Like he's not doing much in the ring. He's just being used as a comic relief because who is he gonna go against? That's gonna look like, oh man, this is good. You know, just what it is. Freaking, they have one guy like that, and that's Rey Mysterio, who makes everything look good. It's just, I don't know, it's whack.
2001, when WCW was about to die at their Greed pay-per-view, not only did we introduce tag team cruiserweight belts, but Shane Helms was just the man, as he had an amazing match for that title. And I'm sure if they hadn't have all of a sudden gone, this would have continued. It also means that World Championship Wrestling was doing the flippy dippy doo-dah stuff right till the end. Again, that was a calling card. We cannot let gibberish like Oklahoma take away from that. Number 2, WCW guaranteed contracts. So there is a long touted story that Eric Bischoff just loved spending money. We even called him ATM Eric. And every single person that came through the door,
yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Woohoo, here's a brand new special guaranteed contract.
Bro, that Tony Khan, bro, he be throwing money like there's no tomorrow. I'm like, damn.
That came through the door, he was like, woohoo, here's a brand new special guaranteed contract. And listen, we will talk about that a little bit later, but in terms of him being the first guy, that is not true. Now, the comparison back then was the fact that Vince McMahon was essentially offering you like $150 for 10 dates, but you would make way more than that based on gates and merchandise or whatever else they were going to do. Like, nobody made that amount. But when WCW was like, look, don't worry about all these business metrics, here's the moolah you are going to put in your pocket, well, that became very exciting. If we actually go through the books, though, and jump into history, even Hulk Hogan in the AWA was offered a flipping guaranteed deal. Do you think he jumped to the WWF without saying, Vince, I'm going to need another one of these? Of course he didn't. Now, yes, that's a Hulk Hogan story, so we do have to take it with a pinch of salt. But again, there's loads of other wrestlers that are like, no, I got this too. And also, not all of these guaranteed contracts Eric Bischoff did hand out were for millions of dollars. Like when he lured Lex Luger back over, he offered him $150,000 a year, which was not considered top guy money at the time.
Yeah.
He didn't really want Lex to come back, and he wanted Lex to prove a point. So let's not run around going, oh my gosh, he overspent on everybody, because he didn't. Now, there are some individuals who did get way too much, but you gotta balance the books. Number 9,
Who's that guy?
WCW is where the old guys play. Now, it does make sense to talk about this, because around about the mid-90s, the WWF made this their entire campaign. If you want to watch old man Hulk Hogan and old man Randy Savage doing their thing, that's fine, but we've got the new generation. At the same time, they had Jake Roberts versus Jerry Lawler. Now listen, no problem with that. They're a couple of goats, but it kind of goes to show it was just marketing.
Yeah.
When you actually look at both rosters, they were basically the same. I mean, really,
And that's what Vince does, bro. He does marketing. Like, he's great at marketing, bro. It's just what he does. Like, it's like, and when you market, you gotta exaggerate or lie, whatever, bro. I remember WrestleMania 28, bro. John Cena versus The Rock. First time ever. The tagline was once in a lifetime, right? Because the first time facing each other, it's gonna be the only time they're gonna face each other. Wrong. Next year, WrestleMania 29, they had a rematch, because why not? They had a bang of a match last year with the top guy, who's a full-time at the time, John Cena, losing. So he's not gonna get his redemption arc the next year? Yeah, but I mean, still, you don't gotta lie to us, bro.
the WWF's biggest problem is that they overly focused on this, and we had those awful skits featuring the Huckster and the Nacho Man. It was like, all right, man, you keep talking about all these brand new wrestlers. Can we see them? Then we got a bunch of cartoon characters, which really isn't what it seems like. And the whole point is age doesn't actually matter in pro wrestling if you are connecting with the audience, and you can still go. So sure, WCW had a bunch of veterans, the WWF had a bunch of veterans, and then there was like loads of people bubbling underneath. Now listen, World Championship Wrestling did get it so poorly because they would never build new stars, but in pretending it was all a bunch of 4-year-olds, say it again, it's not true. Number 8, WCW Thunder was born out of Eric Bischoff's ego. When Thunder debuted in January 1998, WCW Nitro was the most popular wrestling show in the world, and it was trumping Raw. That's why many fans thought, oh, we can see what Eric Bischoff is doing. He has commissioned a second show because he wants to build on the success of what they were doing on Monday nights. Once again, that's a fallacy. It was the Ted Turner executives who were like, oh my gosh, we can take advantage of it. And Bischoff even pushed back like, this is a really bad idea, but you don't get to argue with the suit. It's one of the reasons he...
Yeah, that part I knew already because again he mentions it in the 83 Weeks podcast that Ted Turner started it and Eric Bischoff didn't like the idea. You freaking it was in the way, and that's why the Thunder was so it was like it was so lackluster, bro. It's you could say it's pretty much like Collision today, AEW Collision. Cause you got on a Saturday night, it's like, bro, you serious? It's like, you know what I mean? People's gonna watch it, but not the majority, bro. Get out of here.
He wanted to try and bring Bret Hart in because he was like, oh man, we can build the entire show around him. Where once again, Ted Turner and friends were like, no, we need every single star on Thursday nights as well. Otherwise, what's the point?
Thursday, my bad. I said Saturday. Collision is on Saturday.
This was meant to be a brand split, but people said no. Therefore, Thunder wasn't about Eric Bischoff's ego at all, but it was about WCW pushing their luck, which is somewhat ironic because like 3 years later, they go out of business because they did go too far in one direction. Just goes to show how quickly things in the wrestling business can change.
This guy had a band, bro. Come on.
Number 7, they didn't create homegrown stars. Go tell that to Booker T.
Yeah.
I think he'll be quite annoyed.
Yeah, he's a
then
star.
Maybe have a word with
Sting too, yeah.
Then maybe have a word with Bill
Goldberg too, yeah.
I'm pretty sure all of these people became massive in WCW.
Yeah.
DDP also used it as a massive jumping off platform, and you had Chris Jericho, you had Malenko, you had Eddie Guerrero, and a bunch of other people, which would launch.
Who lied, bro? Who the hell said this? They don't got homegrown star. That's crazy behavior.
Fans in to check out WCW, and once again, don't get me wrong, they were held down, but if you were just watching the 2-hour block of Monday Nitro, well, they still felt like a big deal, and they still were getting TV time. It also got even bigger when they got to WWE because they used WCW as their foundation. And once again, the story is true that the likes of Hulk Hogan and who knows who else held everybody down. And then also, I kind of just touched upon it, what did WWE do at every single avenue they could? They tried to sign these guys because they thought they were stars of the wrestling industry. And they were made in WCW. It's a little bit of a paradox. Number 6, David Arquette ruined the big gold belt. I mean, him winning it didn't help, although I always like to shout out David Arquette, because he not only went to WCW creative team and said, this is a really bad idea, but all the money he earned from this run, he gave it to wrestling families who had suffered tragedies. That is a good dude. On the 26th of April 1999, though, David Arquette, the Hollywood actor, did win the WCW World Championship in an absolute schmoz on Thunder, because Vince Russo thought this would be a great way to increase the ratings. Wasn't. The thing is, though, you need to go back and watch the TV before this for a big chunk of time, because WCW was already doing a bunch of nut stuff. Like in January, we had the Finger Poke of Doom, and this WCW Championship changed hands so many times, you couldn't take it seriously. So by the time David did have it around his waist, they were like, well, of course that's going to happen. I mean, next is probably going to be Elmo. I mean, you could argue the whole Kevin Nash and Hulk Hogan book thing was way worse, because they were meant to be serious wrestlers.
What the hell?
Mostly because Vince Russo thought championship belts were nothing more than props, and you shouldn't have any emotion attached to them. So yeah, it was long dead, way before David Arquette had anything to do with it, and it's always salvageable. But by the time WCW got their fingers in gear, whatever that means, the company died.
Yeah, and being champion, I mean, that just enhanced it with David Arquette. And just like, I don't know, Vince Russo, like, that's the thing, bro. Vince Russo, he's not a wrestling guy, bro. He's not. I heard he did, like, I don't know, he did comic book or TV or something he did, but I mean, that's just, it's weird. Like, he was good for WWE because Vince McMahon, like, he's just filtering the ideas so that he can make it more pleasurable for the fans when it gets aired, and it has, right? Hence the Attitude Era, right? It was created thinking by Vince Russo, freaking a lot of it, I guess, and Vince is enhancing it to be better, and then boom, appetite, freaking. Yeah, even when it was losing to WCW, they were still hot, and not like they were scrubs like AEW, who cannot even maintain 600,000 viewers. You know what I mean?
5. Insert famous terrible moment here, because there were loads of these, such as the Finger Poke of Doom, or putting Judy Bagwell on a forklift, or having on a pole match. You kind of already see what my point is here. There wasn't one terrible moment that killed WCW. It was a lot of things, and then somebody else pulled the plug. Because WCW...
I don't know. I think Vince Russo would be great at making cartoon shows. Not even animated shows, right? Like that's on Adult Swim. You know what I mean? I'm talking about like the PG-14 shows. I think he'd be well suited for that, bro. It's not an insult. I mean, based on this stuff that I'm looking at, I mean that would have been great for for animated TV, you know? If they even put the storyline together.
You would have continued to trundle forward in 2001 if the executives of the show had wanted to continue it, but Jamie Kellner, who got promoted to a very high position, was like, I don't like wrestling, I think it's terrible, I think it drags this station down, I want it cancelled, I want it gone. That was that. Had no more TV time. Without TV time, your television show isn't worth anything. WWE buys it. The end. And yes, of course, once again, Hogan deciding to just touch Kevin Nash to win their biggest prize absolutely contributed. Because if WCW was making the kind of money they were in 1998 and 2001, somebody could have pushed back against Kellner and went, no, man, this is a cash cow.
Yeah.
But we hadn't have done that. But if anybody that was wearing a tie had just vouched for WCW, it probably would have hung around. But that didn't happen. In terms of the person that pulled the trigger, it was Mr. Jamie. I mean, imagine WCW today, it would have been totally fine. It could have gone to a streaming service, or who knows where. It could have predominantly existed on the internet, but that wasn't happening at the turn of the century. So
that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we'll know where to go. Yep. No YouTube, none of it.
So I do kind of lean...
Wait, what did it say?
Before Bret Hart deserves zero blame for his run. So I do kind of lean in Bret's favour a little bit here. Because, I mean, the first thing that WCW had him do, his debut, was coming out at the end of Sting versus Hulk Hogan at Starrcade 1997 and going, oh man, that fast count shouldn't have happened, even though there was no fast count. So from minute one, we put the Hitman in a stupid position. The deeper issue, though, is everything that Bret Hart had just gone through, because he was quite clearly suffering after the Montreal screw job. So if you want to make the argument that his heart wasn't in it, ironically, well, I'd probably agree with you. There's also the fact that he never wanted to leave the WWF, and he certainly never wanted to join WCW. So I guess he was just spinning his wheels here. He wanted something to come and grab him storyline-wise, and he wasn't given it. So every week that went by, it kind of just checked out. I mean, a great example of WCW not helping him is when the Wrestling with Shadows documentary was released. Everybody sided with Bret, but because WCW was so worried that crowds would cheer him, he was meant to be a heel, we just didn't put him on TV, and we waited for the noise to calm down. I'm sorry, but that's anti-booking. The timing, of course, just got worse and worse, because in 1999, Bret Hart lost his brother Owen. Dare I say, from that point on, he probably lost his passion for wrestling too. So this was just wrong place and wrong
Can't blame
time.
him.
And it's Bret Hart, man. He is the absolute GOAT. Maybe everybody could have done better here. Just didn't click. Number 3, everything Vince Russo did helped kill WCW. I mean, sure, we've already talked about a lot of it. I mean, Viagra on a pole, Judy Bagwell on a forklift, and that time he told Bill Goldberg to yell at him because he was going to go off script. Still not over that one, and it happened 24 years ago. It's important to remember, though, that WCW was already absolutely stupid before this. I mean, way back in 1994, they were doing the Dungeon of Doom. Go on YouTube today and type in WCW Dungeon of Doom, or there'll be an image there. You think that looks like a cartoon, you need to see it in motion. Before long as well, there weren't too many people on the roster, and yes, some of them were getting guaranteed contracts that weren't helping the business. But then, there was also the Yeti. There was also Oz. There was also this bizarre creation called the DOD, and all of this, yes, came long before Vince Russo ever arrived. In fact, some of these were going down when Russo was helping booking the Attitude Era. I mean, Hulk Hogan beating 70-80 people in a massive cage match also didn't endear himself to the WCW fans. So I'm not trying to pretend that when Vince Russo joined, he helped WCW, because he did the opposite. But you can't place the blame all on him. It took a lot of people to finally take that place down. Well, we've actually talked about a lot of them today. Number 2, everything at the end sucked. I mean, not quite, as we've already talked about. A lot of the year 2000 was utter garbage. But you still get Scott Steiner totally reinventing himself and becoming a main eventer. And I ain't ever going to get mad at Booker T finally becoming a world champion. That was long overdue. The Cruiserweights, of course, are also working super hard to get over this stupid... That was long overdue. The Cruiserweights, of course, are also working super hard to get over this stupid Oklahoma shit. And come 2001, the company actually hit a massive reset button. And if you do go watch the last couple of shows, you're like, wait a minute, maybe they are going to get back on the right path. Before the call came in from Mr. Kellner, and it was gone. I really do think if they were able to trundle on past March, they actually would have found a second lease of life, because I think they finally realised we're in dire straits here. But that's history, man. Sometimes if you do miss your mark, well, you never get a second chance.
Yeah,
Number one,
facts.
they always copied WWE. I mean, you still get this today. AEW copied WWE.
Yeah.
WWE copied AEW. It's not a thing.
In what
man.
way?
Wrestling is cyclical, and it's been around for so many years. Every idea has been done.
Yep.
It's about taking that concept and reimagining it in your own image.
Yeah.
You get it right, more power to you. The truth is,
Yeah.
in many ways, during the late 90s, a lot of what WWE and WCW was doing came from ECW, and it most definitely came from Japan. Once again, though, when World Championship Wrestling did get this right, it was the World Wrestling Federation who kind of popped over like, oh man, maybe we should do a bit of that. I mean, look at the NWO and then look at the birth of D-Generation X.
Okay, yeah.
That's not a coincidence. It's because Shawn Michaels went to Vince McMahon and was like, have you seen what they're doing? It's like interesting, mature adult entertainment, and we really should be doing that too. I mean, the New World Order also felt totally fresh when it came to American shores, and essentially gave birth to the idea of the wrestling stable we still see today. And if you want to make the argument that WCW had Starrcade before WWF had WrestleMania, have at it, dude. There's the comments. You've got a lot of evidence. It's also only fair to point out that a lot of the things Eric Bischoff did for Monday Nitro totally changed the game, and Raw pinched those as well, like going 2 hours live on Monday nights. I mean, for years, all wrestling companies are like, well, we'll do the live show here and there, but most of our stuff will be pre-taped in order to save some cash. And it was like, nope, I want things to feel fresh and exciting. And look where we are now, we never look back. So actually, during that 83 weeks, it was WCW that had the edge over the WWF. I don't mind the WWF copied a lot of that. Paul Heyman probably might, because a lot came from ECW, but I'm not going to worry about that now, because it almost happened 30 years ago. Now, of course, if you know any other misconceptions about WCW, drop them in the comments below. Before you like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Click the video on the screen for yet more information about them.
I'm gonna click on this video for future reference. Like there's always a thing where you see something and that part is true, but that doesn't paint the whole story. You know what I mean? That's just real life. That's not anything. Whether shows, freaking wrestling, sports, whatever. Freaking like an example, right? I always hear and those are usually people that either A, just remember they're so wrong, or B, they just didn't even pay attention, nor did they really care about it. For example, like Fast and the Furious, the franchise. I love the franchise. A lot of people would say the franchise is about racing, or the franchise used to be about racing, and now they're doing missions and stuff like that, like agent type stuff. And my argument is, somebody who even rewatched the franchise just for the sake of it, it was never about racing, bro. Only the third part of the movie, the third part of the franchise is about racing. And that was Tokyo Drift, where it looked like they were going to a different direction in terms of actors and stuff. Because none of the returning members from part 1 and 2 was in part 3, except for Vin Diesel at the end, until they brought back the original cast from part 1 and Vin Diesel and Paul Walker, rest in peace, in part 4, which ended up being absolute cinema before things got over the top with 5 and so on. It was never about racing, right? So that's what it is right here with this video, with the 12th misconception about WCW you probably believe. Like, it's just what it is. Like a David Arquette ruining the big gold belt. Freaking, it was already gone to beforehand. It just enhanced even more because he wasn't even a wrestler. He was just a guy. He was an actor who was a fan of the business, and just ended up having the top prize. That just made it look terrible. But yeah, thank you for watching. Peace, I'm out.